An article by the National Post that came out earlier this year entitled "Aging in Place: How Baby Boomers Are Breaking Canada's Real Estate Market" made the argument that it's actually the fault of baby boomers, those born between 1946 and 1964, are actually the ones that are creating a bottleneck in supply for housing, and they're the ones that are the current cause of the housing crisis that we're experiencing countrywide. And it's a very detailed article that I would definitely advise you to go and have a read of if you have the time. So to summarize the article as best as possible, it's basically making the argument that real estate wealthy boomers are the ones that are causing this issue because they're just not moving as often as they used to. We're seeing that our older population, those over 65, are actually living a lot longer than they used to. The quality of life has gone up, and thus the life expectancy has gone up. In addition to that, we're seeing people, stay in the workforce longer, and as a result, they're not necessarily moving from the homes that they would be traditionally downsizing from, moving into retirement communities, moving in with family and friends. That's just not happening as often. And to exacerbate this issue even further, over 20% of Canada's population will be above the age of 65 within the next 5 years. So we have a rapidly aging population, but that population isn't moving like they historically have. So this has created a bit of a bottleneck that we have to deal with now. In addition to this, the COVID-19 pandemic has really exacerbated this issue because a lot of boomers looked at what happened in these long-term care facilities where over 50% of the deaths from COVID occurred, and they said, we just don't want that style of living. We don't want to be stuck in our rooms in pure isolation because the whole facility is in lockdown, which a lot of places had to do. So they're saying, maybe that isn't the best option for us. And as a result, they're staying in their homes and they're looking at options for what they can do in their current properties. And that's where a lot of them have actually accrued equity over the years of living in their homes. And what they're doing is they're taking some of that equity out, some of the value of that property, and doing the renovations and retrofits that they need to actually age in place. So we're seeing more people install elevators, chair lifts, grab handles, things that allow you to age in place gracefully. These are becoming more common than not, as this older generation wants to retain their independence, but have all of the services that they need to age and have everything that they need to fulfill their health and mental requirements. So as a result of so many of these boomers taking out equity of their properties, we've seen the highest rate of reverse mortgages ever in recorded history currently in place. There's over $5 billion of reverse mortgages in Canada, which means that there's people that have taken value out of their properties and they're using that for whatever their purpose is, some of them aging in place, some of them renovations, whatever it is, but they've taken that equity out of their home, which they'll eventually have to pay back when those properties are sold. But the question is, when will those properties be sold to help the housing crisis that we're currently experiencing? Well, it's super easy to kind of blame the baby boomers and put them as the scapegoat for this huge issue. There's actually a lot of factors that have led us to where we are right now, and it's not solely their fault, but it kind of is. Let me explain. If we take a look at Canada's demographics and how they've changed over the past 10 years, it becomes very, very evident that we have a rapidly aging population. And this is backed up by the stats. In 2012, 1 in 7 Canadians were considered a senior. By 2030, that number will be 1 in 4. So if there's 4 people in a room, one of them's a senior. That's a lot. That works out to 9.5 million people in our population that are over the age of 65. That's huge. On top of this, the life expectancy for both men and women is expected to rise by 2036. So that means that we're going to have a larger senior population that is living longer than ever. That's a combination of factors that we've really got to pay attention to. And the Canadian government has actually been well aware of this fact and this transition within our country and our economy. And they've implemented measures over the last 10 years to try and help things move along. In 2011, over $1.4 billion of combined investment went into helping 184,000 households in need for seniors and those with disabilities across the country. In 2013, the Economic Action Plan allocated over $1.25 billion through 5 years for the CMHC Affordable Housing Center, which has helped build 25,000 affordable housing units since 2006, with nearly 11,000 of those being for seniors. As of 2016, 93% of seniors lived in a private dwelling, and when polled versus the general population, this was a much, much lower percentage of the population that was willing to move in the senior demographic. It was about under 5% versus 13% versus the general population for how much they move. And this is exacerbated by actually having products and services designed for helping seniors age in place. This includes things like chair lifts, elevators, grab handles, anti-slip materials on floors. A lot of different products and services are now available that just weren't in the marketplace 5-10 years ago. And that's really changed how people view their home and how long they stay in it. So the question that may be coming to your mind when you're seeing all of this is, why don't they just move to retirement communities? Why don't the seniors just move in to retirement communities when they get older? That would solve all these problems, right? And, while that's, yes, the simple way to look at this, it actually goes a lot deeper. And it goes back to kind of all of the reasons that we mentioned earlier about the lack of independence, the isolation that goes into living in these long-term care facilities when they do have a COVID lockdown. That's really made it so that people look at this a little bit differently as a viable option. And that comes to the root issue, is that there just aren't enough viable options for this demographic to move to right now. So how do we fix that? As traditional retirement communities are seen as having a loss of independence, for these seniors when they do move into them, we need to look actually abroad to see if there's any examples that we can implement locally that give all of the housing, the social, and the medical needs that these seniors need to age successfully in place. What does that framework look like while still offering them the independence that they so desire? So there's some cases around the world, but the top ones that we can look to are lifetime neighborhoods in the United Kingdom, co-housing communities in Denmark, apartments for life in the Netherlands, home share programs in France, retirement villages in the United States. And in California, there's been a big reform to the residential zoning code, which has now allowed dwellings to be split up or put into duplexes a lot easier. They're basically allowing lots to be split a lot simpler than they were previously. And what this could do is actually create micro senior communities. So instead of having a whole retirement, big facility, 100 rooms kind of thing, it could be more of a small micro community where it's 5-10 seniors that are like-minded coming together and living in a facility that is independent but offers them all of the services that they need, medical services, transportation, getting groceries. Those kinds of things could be put in place so to offer this hybrid model that would be a lot more attractive than what we currently have available on the market. And more locally in Toronto, we actually have the opportunity to utilize stuff like laneway houses and garden suites to help address this issue. Because what you could do is, instead of selling the property, you could build a laneway home or a garden suite if you needed a live-in nanny to be there full-time. Or if you have a property and you say, we can go and put mom and dad in the garden suite in the back, or put them in the laneway suite, it allows you to have a sense of community together while still offering the independence that they want. So again, having more options that could suit all of these different levels of aging that are happening right now. Not everyone ages at the same pace. Some 70-year-olds are super active, some 70-year-olds are not, right? So we need to have options that are available for all of them at any different point of their physical and mental needs. And by doing this, we're actually creating more unique living options, which make the city more vibrant, but they also help relieve some of the stress from the buyer and the rental pool, because it will be adding inventory that wasn't there before, which solves the core issue of our lack of inventory across the board. So back to the initial question of this article. Are baby boomers breaking the real estate market? In short, yes. Is it their fault? Kind of, but not totally. And let me explain what I mean there. I say this as historically there hasn't been a lot of demand for senior-specific properties. And, any developer is always going to be incentivized by what's going to make them the most money, and the population size in Canada for seniors historically in Canada has not been high enough for most of these big developers or even small developers to really get into. But now, as the population shifts and we're seeing a big transition towards having a much older population, a lot of the developers are starting to see the profit from building these kinds of projects. So things will likely change over the next 5, 10, 20 years, and it'll be interesting to see what that landscape looks like and see if we integrate some of these more international models into what we're doing locally here. And this could actually be incentivized further by the government by saying to developers, hey, if you build senior-specific properties, and it could be at any price point, it could be for low-income seniors or super high-level income seniors. We need to have options for all of them, and having some sort of incentive to developers to say, hey, if you build this, we'll give you, a cut on your taxes, or we'll give you a rebate on this, to allow more of these developments to occur. Then we will have more housing inventory, and this will hopefully level out everything that's going on in the market right now. So I'm interested to see what you think will happen over the next 5, 10, 20 years in Canada as our population ages and we deal with this transition. What do you think is going to happen? Let me know in the comments section down below, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a thumbs up and hit subscribe so you can stay tuned for a lot more videos that are going to be coming up over the next couple of months. So I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.